Hello everyone. Today we are gonna travel through the life of Donald Trump, the President of United States. I recommend you to lie on your mattress in a comfortable position for a deep sleep. I request you to subscribe our channel for further videos. Without any delay, let's dive into the biography. Donald John Trump was born on June 14, 1946, at Jamaica Hospital in Queens, New York, to Frederick Christ Trump and Mary Ann McLeod Trump. He was the fourth of 5 children in a family that would become synonymous with wealth, power, and controversy in American society. The Trump family mansion at 85-14 Midland Parkway in Jamaica Estates was a 23-room colonial-style home that epitomized upper-class living in one of Queens' most exclusive neighborhoods. The Trump family lineage reflects the immigrant experience that helped build America. On his father's side, Donald descended from Friedrich Trump, his grandfather, who emigrated from Kallstadt, Germany, in the late 19th century. Friedrich, originally a barber's apprentice who was deemed too sickly for vineyard work, sought his fortune in America at age 16. The family name had evolved over centuries from various spellings, including Drumpf, Trom, and Trump, before settling on Trump during the tumultuous 30 Years' War period. Donald's German heritage was deliberately obscured by his father Fred Trump for decades. Following World War II, Fred falsely claimed Swedish ancestry to avoid anti-German sentiment that pervaded American society. This deception persisted well into the 1980s, with Donald himself repeating the Swedish ancestry claim in his 1987 book The Art of the Deal. Only later did Trump acknowledge and express pride in his German roots, even serving as Grand Marshal of the 1999 German-American Student Parade in New York City. On his maternal side, Donald's heritage traces to the rugged Scottish Highlands. His mother, Mary Ann McLeod, was born in 1912 on the Isle of Lewis in the Outer Hebrides. She came from a Gaelic-speaking household where English was her second language. Her father, Malcolm McLeod, worked as both a fisherman and tenant farmer in the harsh conditions of the Scottish Islands. Mary was the youngest of 10 children and left her homeland at age 18 in 1930, sailing on the RMS Transylvania from Glasgow to seek opportunities in America. She initially worked as a maid in New York before meeting Fred Trump around 1935. The convergence of these immigrant bloodlines, German entrepreneurial ambition and Scottish Highland resilience, would manifest in their son Donald, who would later become one of the most polarizing figures in American political history. Understanding Donald Trump requires examining the formidable foundation built by his father, Fred Christ Trump, whose business acumen and controversial methods would profoundly shape his son's worldview and approach to both business and life. Fred Trump was born on October 11, 1905, in the Bronx to German immigrant parents Friedrich and Elizabeth Trump. When Friedrich died young, leaving the family's economic future uncertain, Fred demonstrated the entrepreneurial drive that would become a Trump family hallmark. Fred's rise in real estate began during the Great Depression, when he recognized that government-subsidized housing represented a lucrative opportunity. By the 1940s, his company was constructing apartments for war workers along the East Coast, and by the 1950s, he had built over 27,000 apartments throughout New York. His business philosophy was ruthlessly practical: build efficiently, maximize profits, and leverage government programs whenever possible. The Trump Organization, as it would later be known, became Fred's vehicle for accumulating vast wealth through middle-class rental housing across Brooklyn, Queens, and Staten Island. By the time Donald joined the business, the company managed approximately 14,000 apartments and generated millions in annual rental income. Fred's success, however, was not without controversy. He faced investigation by a U.S. Senate committee in 1954 for profiteering, and again by New York State in 1966 for questionable business practices. Most significantly, in 1973, Fred and Donald Trump were sued by the U.S. Justice Department Civil Rights Division for allegedly discriminating against black rental applicants. This early legal challenge would foreshadow the racial controversies that would follow Donald throughout his career. The Trumps ultimately settled the case without admitting wrongdoing, but the incident established a pattern of legal battles that would become a defining characteristic of the Trump business empire. Fred's relationship with Donald was complex and formative. According to tax records later revealed by the New York Times, Fred provided Donald with over $413 million in today's currency from his father's business empire, making Donald a millionaire by age 8. This financial support continued throughout Donald's life, including over $60.7 million in loans that were largely never repaid. Contrary to Donald's later claims of receiving only a small loan of $1 million from his father, the reality was a massive, continuous transfer of wealth that enabled Donald's subsequent ventures. Fred's influence extended beyond mere financial support. He taught Donald the importance of projecting strength, controlling narratives, and never admitting weakness. According to Trump Construction Vice President Barbara Ress, Fred would seat business guests in off-balance chairs and advise Donald to arrange his office so that adversaries would be forced to face the sun, psychological tactics designed to gain advantage in negotiations. These lessons in dominance and manipulation would become signature elements of Donald's later business and political style. Donald Trump's childhood in Jamaica Estates was marked by a constant tension between privilege and rebellion, a dynamic that would ultimately lead to a pivotal decision that shaped his character. The young Donald was, by his own admission, mostly interested in creating mischief. His behavioral problems included throwing erasers at teachers and general defiance of authority. His parents, particularly his disciplinarian father Fred, grew increasingly concerned about their son's rebellious streak and its potential impact on his future. At age 13, in 1959, Donald was sent to the New York Military Academy, NYMA, in Cornwall, New York, roughly an hour north of New York City. This decision represented Fred Trump's belief that military discipline could channel his son's aggressive tendencies in a more productive direction. The Academy, founded in 1889, operated on principles of military discipline, academic excellence, and character development. For a wealthy Manhattan teenager accustomed to the privileges of Jamaica Estates, the transition was jarring. At NYMA, Trump initially struggled with basic military requirements, he didn't know how to make a bed or shine shoes. However, he quickly adapted to the competitive environment and began to display the leadership qualities that would later define his public persona. His roommate reportedly observed that Trump had an "anything you can do, I can do better" attitude. Trump excelled in both academics and athletics, serving as captain of the baseball team and playing soccer. He was even recognized in the senior yearbook as ladies' man, indicating his early charisma with the opposite sex. The military academy environment reinforced several key aspects of Trump's personality that would persist throughout his life. The emphasis on winning, hierarchy, and projecting strength aligned perfectly with the values he had absorbed from his father. Trump rose through the ranks to become a cadet captain, though his tenure was not without controversy. In one incident, he allegedly became enraged after finding a fellow cadet's bed unmade during an inspection, leading to a physical altercation where Trump reportedly attempted to push the cadet toward a second-floor window before other cadets intervened. The academy years also established Trump's pattern of bending rules while maintaining plausible deniability. Despite regulations prohibiting female visitors, Trump would often have so many girls at the military school on Sundays, according to classmates. This ability to circumvent restrictions while avoiding serious consequences would become a hallmark of his later business and political career. Academically, Trump was a competent but not exceptional student. However, the military academy's emphasis on leadership, discipline, and competition provided him with tools that would prove invaluable in his later endeavors. Former classmates recalled that Trump carried himself as someone who knew he was destined for something bigger, displaying an early version of the confidence and ambition that would later characterize his public persona. The 5 years at NYMA, 1959 to 1964, were transformative for Trump, instilling in him a deep appreciation for hierarchy, order, and the power of commanding presence. When he graduated in May 1964, he had evolved from a rebellious teenager into a disciplined young man with clear leadership abilities and an unshakable belief in his own potential for greatness. Trump's college experience reflects both his strategic thinking and his family's influence in opening doors that might otherwise have remained closed. After graduating from the New York Military Academy in 1964, Trump initially enrolled at Fordham University in the Bronx. However, Fordham was never his first choice. He had originally aspired to attend the University of Southern California to pursue his initial dream of becoming a movie producer. When USC rejected him, Fordham became his backup option. At Fordham, Trump spent 2 years studying subjects including Islam, Socrates, Aristotle, and logic, a liberal arts curriculum that provided him with a broader intellectual foundation than his later business focus might suggest. During this period, he was an active participant in campus life, playing squash and maintaining the relatively low profile that characterized much of his early adulthood. According to the Fordham College Alumni Association, Trump did not leave significant footprints at the university, though he was remembered as being athletic and intelligent. Trump's strategic thinking became evident in his decision to transfer to the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School of Finance and Commerce after his sophomore year. This move was facilitated by family connections, specifically a phone call from his older brother Fred Trump Jr. to James Nolan, a family friend who served as an admissions official at Penn. Nolan later recalled the conversation. "He called me and said, 'You remember my brother Donald?' Which I didn't. He said, 'He's at Fordham and he would like to transfer to Wharton. Will you interview him?' The interview process, conducted by Nolan, provides insight into Trump's early persona. Donald arrived accompanied by his father Fred Sr., who attempted to ingratiate himself with the admissions officer. Nolan remembered giving Trump a rating that was decent enough to support his candidacy, though he later noted, "I certainly was not struck by any sense that I'm sitting before a genius. Certainly not a super genius." However, gaining admission to Wharton in the mid-1960s was significantly easier than it would later become. The school accepted more than half of its applicants, and transfer students had an even higher acceptance rate. Trump's time at Wharton coincided with significant social and political upheaval in America, including the escalation of the Vietnam War. While at college, Trump received for educational deferments that kept him out of military service. In 1968, just before graduation, he received a medical deferment for bone spurs in his heels, a diagnosis that has since been the subject of considerable controversy. According to later reporting by the New York Times, this medical exemption may have been arranged as a favor by a Queens podiatrist who rented office space from Fred Trump. The bone spur diagnosis was particularly convenient timing for someone who had spent 5 years in military academy and had passed a physical examination just 2 years earlier. Trump himself has given conflicting accounts of the condition, sometimes claiming it eventually healed on its own without surgery. In 2019, his former lawyer Michael Cohen testified that Trump had admitted to him that the medical deferment was fabricated, telling Cohen, "You think I'm stupid? I wasn't going to Vietnam." Trump graduated from Wharton in May 1968 with a Bachelor of Science in Economics. The graduation ceremony on May 20, 1968, at Philadelphia's Civic Center marked what Trump would later call the real beginning of his career. As he told the Boston Globe in 2015, "You know, I wasn't Trump then, you understand. I was Trump but I wasn't Trump." This distinction captures Trump's understanding that his Wharton degree provided him with the credibility necessary to transform from Fred Trump's son into Donald Trump, Manhattan real estate mogul. The Wharton years were significant not just for the education they provided, but for the credential they represented. Throughout his later career, Trump would repeatedly invoke his Wharton degree as evidence of his intelligence and business acumen. According to Penn student newspaper, Trump publicly name-dropped Wharton 52 times between June 2015 and January 2018. However, despite this frequent boasting, Trump has never allowed his academic records to be made public, leading to speculation about his actual performance. Michael Wolff, author of several books about Trump, reported that friends from Trump's college years described him as someone who was obviously not interested in school and possibly never read a book in his life. Regardless of his academic performance, Trump's Wharton years provided him with several crucial advantages: an Ivy League credential, exposure to sophisticated financial concepts, and most importantly, the confidence to enter Manhattan's competitive real estate market. When he joined his father's business full-time in 1968, he carried with him not just family connections and financial backing, but also the prestigious Wharton brand that would help him gain credibility with investors, lenders, and business partners. Upon graduating from Wharton in 1968, Donald Trump joined his father's real estate company, initially focusing on the family's established business of middle-class rental housing in Brooklyn, Queens, and Staten Island. The company, which Donald would rename the Trump Organization around 1973, oversaw approximately 14,000 apartments and represented a substantial real estate empire built on Fred Trump's decades of disciplined development and strategic use of government programs. Donald's entry into the family business coincided with his assumption of increasing responsibility within the organization. In 1971, at age 25, he became president of the company while his father transitioned to the role of chairman. This power shift was carefully orchestrated by Fred, who recognized his son's ambition to expand beyond the outer boroughs and into Manhattan's more prestigious and profitable real estate market. As Donald later recalled, "It was good for me. You know, being the son of somebody, it could have been competition to me. This way, I got Manhattan all to myself." However, Donald's early business career was immediately marked by controversy. In 1973, just as he was consolidating control over the Trump Organization, the company faced a major crisis when the U.S. Justice Department Civil Rights Division filed a lawsuit alleging that the Trumps discriminated against African American rental applicants. The government's case was based on testing that revealed black applicants were routinely told that no apartments were available, while white applicants were shown available units. The lawsuit sought to compel the Trump Organization to rent to qualified applicants regardless of race and to pay damages to those who had been discriminated against. The Trumps' response to this lawsuit revealed the aggressive legal strategy that would characterize Donald's approach to business conflicts throughout his career. Rather than settle quietly, they filed a $100 million countersuit against the government for making false and misleading statements. Donald, displaying the media savvy that would later make him a household name, held a press conference at the New York Hilton to announce the countersuit, declaring it outrageous that the government would make such accusations against his family's business. Despite their initial defiance, the Trumps ultimately settled the case in 1975 without admitting wrongdoing. The settlement required them to take several steps to ensure non-discriminatory rental practices, including advertising in minority publications and providing reports to the government about their compliance efforts. However, the settlement did not require them to pay damages to victims of discrimination, and the Trumps continued to maintain their innocence. The discrimination lawsuit provided Donald with several important lessons that would shape his future business and political career. First, he learned the power of aggressive counterattack when faced with allegations, a strategy he would employ repeatedly throughout his life. Second, he discovered that controversial publicity, even negative publicity, could enhance rather than damage his public profile. The lawsuit made Donald Trump's name appear in major newspapers for the first time, beginning his lifelong relationship with the media. During this early period, Donald also began developing the networking skills and political connections that would prove crucial to his later success. He cultivated relationships with influential New York politicians, including Democratic leaders who could help facilitate his real estate projects. He also began studying Manhattan's real estate market, identifying opportunities for development and redevelopment that his father had avoided due to their higher complexity and greater financial risk. The financial foundation for Donald's ambitions continued to flow from his father throughout this period. According to later investigations by the New York Times, Fred provided Donald with extensive financial support during the 1970s, including loans exceeding $14 million. This support was structured in ways designed to minimize tax obligations, often involving complex business arrangements that allowed Fred to transfer wealth to his son while maintaining the fiction that Donald was building his empire independently. By the mid-1970s, Donald had established himself as the driving force behind the Trump Organization's expansion ambitions while maintaining the financial backing and institutional knowledge provided by his father's organization. The stage was set for his first major Manhattan development project, which would either establish him as a significant player in New York real estate or expose the limitations of his abilities and resources. The transformation of the deteriorating Commodore Hotel into the Grand Hyatt New York represents Donald Trump's first major business triumph and the foundation upon which his public persona was built. The project demonstrated both his ability to identify overlooked opportunities and his skill at leveraging government incentives, family connections, and media attention to achieve ambitious goals. The Commodore Hotel, located adjacent to Grand Central Terminal on East 42nd Street, had opened in 1919 as a prestigious accommodation for railroad travelers. However, by the mid-1970s, the hotel had fallen into severe decline, mirroring the broader economic malaise affecting New York City. The railroad company Penn Central, which owned the hotel, had declared bankruptcy in 1970, and the Commodore itself had become, in Trump's later description, so dingy it looked like a welfare hotel. The hotel was losing money rapidly, with occupancy rates falling to 33% and projected losses of $4.6 million annually. Trump's interest in the Commodore was sparked by his recognition of a fundamental contradiction. While the hotel itself was failing, thousands of well-dressed commuters passed by its doors every day as they traveled between Grand Central Terminal and the surrounding business district. As he would later write in The Art of the Deal, the city was on the verge of bankruptcy, but what I saw was a superb location. This ability to see potential in distressed assets would become a hallmark of Trump's business approach throughout his career. The project required Trump to navigate complex negotiations with multiple parties, including Penn Central, the bankrupt railroad company, Hyatt Corporation, his proposed hotel partner, and New York City government officials who had to approve both the sale and the substantial tax incentives that would make the project financially viable. Trump's approach demonstrated the influence peddling and deal-making skills he had learned from his father, combined with his own instinct for publicity and self-promotion. The financial structure of the Commodore deal revealed both Trump's ambition and his dependence on others for capital. Trump planned to purchase the hotel for $10 million and spend $70 million on renovations, but he lacked the personal resources for such an investment. He negotiated an arrangement where Hyatt would provide hotel management expertise and some financing, while Trump would handle the development and seek additional funding. Crucially, Trump secured a commitment from his father and the Bowery Savings Bank for $45 million in financing, with the Equitable Life Assurance Society providing an additional $35 million. Perhaps most importantly, Trump negotiated a 40-year tax abatement from New York City worth an estimated $160 million, a deal that was controversial even at the time. The abatement was justified by city officials as necessary to prevent the hotel from being demolished and to encourage private investment in a struggling area. However, critics argued that the city was subsidizing a project that would primarily benefit wealthy developers and hotel guests rather than addressing the needs of ordinary New Yorkers. The renovation of the Commodore into the Grand Hyatt demonstrated Trump's instinct for dramatic visual presentation. The most striking change was the installation of a reflective glass facade that wrapped around the entire building, creating what one observer called a mirror box. While architectural critics would later describe this design as an utter and inexcusable outrage to the cityscape, the gleaming surface served Trump's purpose of creating a building that demanded attention. The new facade became a symbol of the glitzy, wealth-focused culture that Trump would spend his career promoting. The Grand Hyatt reopened in 1980, just as New York City was beginning to recover from its fiscal crisis and the broader American economy was entering a period of growth that would define the 1980s. Trump's timing proved excellent. The hotel was able to charge premium rates, with some rooms renting for as much as $1,100 per night. The project's success provided Trump with several crucial assets, proof that he could complete complex Manhattan real estate deals, relationships with major financial institutions and hotel operators, and most importantly, media attention that established him as a rising figure in New York business circles. The Commodore project also established the template for Trump's future development strategy: identify distressed or undervalued assets in prime locations, negotiate government incentives and tax breaks, secure financing from others while minimizing his own capital investment, and create visually striking buildings that would generate media coverage and enhance his personal brand. This approach would guide his next and most famous project, Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue. The construction of Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue represents the apotheosis of Donald Trump's early real estate career and the creation of the physical symbol that would define his brand for decades to come. More than just a real estate development, Trump Tower became a testament to Trump's understanding of luxury, marketing, and the power of strategic location in establishing lasting success. The site Trump selected for his signature building was occupied by the flagship store of Bonwit Teller, a prestigious department store chain located at the corner of Fifth Avenue and 56th Street. The location was strategically perfect, positioned in the heart of Midtown Manhattan's luxury shopping district, with maximum visibility and foot traffic from both residents and tourists. Acquiring the site required Trump to negotiate not only the purchase of the building but also the relocation of a major retail tenant, demonstrating the complex deal-making skills he had developed during the Commodore Hotel project. The design of Trump Tower reflected Trump's personal aesthetic and his understanding of what would appeal to wealthy buyers seeking both luxury and status. Working with architect Der Scut of Swank Hayden Connell Architects, Trump created a 58-story mixed-use building that combined retail space, offices, and residential condominiums in a single dramatic structure. The building's most striking feature was its atrium, which featured a 6-story waterfall, pink marble from Italy, and brass fixtures throughout, creating an atmosphere of opulent luxury that became synonymous with the Trump brand. The development of Trump Tower was marked by several controversies that foreshadowed the legal and ethical challenges that would follow Trump throughout his career. The most significant controversy involved the destruction of historically important Art Deco sculptures and decorative elements from the original Bonwit Teller building. Trump had initially promised to donate these artifacts to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, but ultimately ordered their destruction to avoid delays in construction. When questioned about this decision, Trump claimed the sculptures had no artistic merit, a statement that outraged preservationists and established his reputation for prioritizing financial considerations over cultural or historical values. Construction of Trump Tower also involved allegations of labor violations and the use of undocumented workers. Polish immigrants, dubbed Polish Brigade by workers, were employed to demolish the Bonwit Teller building under conditions that violated labor laws, including working without proper safety equipment and being paid below minimum wage. Trump and his construction partners were later sued by the workers and ultimately reached a settlement, though Trump continued to deny wrongdoing. The financial structure of Trump Tower demonstrated Trump's increasing sophistication in real estate finance and his ability to minimize personal risk while maximizing potential returns. The project was developed in partnership with the Equitable Life Assurance Company, which provided significant financing in exchange for a long-term ground lease arrangement. Trump was able to secure this partnership largely because of his success with the Grand Hyatt project and his family's established reputation in New York real estate. The building's mixed-use design allowed Trump to generate multiple revenue streams while appealing to different market segments. The retail space attracted high-end retailers willing to pay premium rents for Fifth Avenue exposure, while the office floors provided steady rental income from business tenants. The residential condominiums represented the highest value component of the project, with units selling for between $600,000 and $12 million upon the building's opening in 1983. Trump's marketing of Trump Tower revealed his genius for self-promotion and brand building. He purchased full-page advertisements in multiple newspapers and magazines, hosted lavish opening events, and made himself available for media interviews that focused as much on his personal story as on the building itself. The grand opening of the atrium and retail spaces on February 14, 1983, was followed by the opening of offices and apartments later that year. The success of Trump Tower exceeded even Trump's optimistic projections. By August 1983, 85% of the residential units had been sold, generating $260 million in revenue that was used to pay off the construction loan. The building attracted high-profile tenants and residents, including celebrities, business leaders, and international investors who were drawn to both the luxury amenities and the prestige of a Trump address. The tower's success also established Trump Tower as his personal residence and the headquarters of the Trump Organization, making it the physical center of his business and personal empire. Perhaps most importantly, Trump Tower served as a powerful marketing tool for Trump's personal brand. The building's dramatic public spaces, luxury finishes, and prominent Trump signage created a physical manifestation of the wealth and success that Trump wanted to project. The tower became a tourist destination in its own right, with visitors coming specifically to see the famous atrium and to experience the Trump lifestyle. This transformation of a real estate development into a brand experience would become a model for Trump's future projects and a key component of his expansion into entertainment and politics. The completion of Trump Tower in 1983 marked the end of Trump's apprenticeship in Manhattan real estate and the beginning of his emergence as a major figure in American business and popular culture. The building provided him with the financial resources, credibility, and media platform necessary to pursue even more ambitious projects throughout the 1980s. Trump's expansion into Atlantic City's nascent casino industry in the early 1980s represented both the peak of his ambitions and the beginning of the financial troubles that would plague him throughout the following decade. The legalization of gambling in New Jersey in 1976 had transformed Atlantic City from a declining seaside resort into America's East Coast gambling capital, attracting entrepreneurs who saw enormous profit potential in bringing Las Vegas-style entertainment to the Northeast. Trump's entry into the casino business began with the Trump Plaza Hotel and Casino, which opened in 1984. Unlike his Manhattan real estate projects, where Trump typically minimized his personal financial exposure, the casino ventures required substantial upfront capital investment and ongoing operational funding. Trump financed these projects through a combination of high-yield bonds, bank loans, and limited personal investment, creating a highly leveraged financial structure that would prove unsustainable when casino revenues failed to meet projections. The Trump Taj Mahal, which Trump proclaimed would be the eighth wonder of the world, epitomized both his grandiose vision and his financial overreach. The project, which cost nearly $1 billion to complete, was originally begun by Resorts International but taken over by Trump when the original developer encountered financial difficulties. The Taj Mahal opened on April 2, 1990, featuring 1,250 rooms, a 120,000 square foot gambling hall with 3,000 slot machines and more than 160 gaming tables, and a 7,000-seat arena for boxing matches and concerts. The opening of the Taj Mahal was celebrated with typical Trump flair, including appearances by major celebrities such as Michael Jackson, who was at the peak of his fame. Trump's marketing emphasized the casino's unprecedented scale and luxury, positioning it as a destination that would attract high rollers from around the world. However, the project's massive debt burden, financed largely through junk bonds with interest rates near 14%, created financial obligations that proved impossible to meet once the initial novelty wore off. Trump's casino empire ultimately included 3 Atlantic City properties: Trump Plaza, Trump Castle, later Trump Marina, and the Trump Taj Mahal. However, the over-leveraged nature of these investments became apparent as early as 1990, when Trump's businesses faced severe cash shortages that prevented them from meeting interest payments on their substantial debt. The situation was so dire that several banks that had lent money to Trump were threatening foreclosure, which could have triggered a cascade of bankruptcies, including Trump's personal bankruptcy. The financial crisis of 1990 marked a turning point in Trump's business career and his relationship with both lenders and the media. To avoid personal bankruptcy, Trump negotiated a deal with his creditors that provided him with an additional $65 million in credit while requiring him to relinquish control over much of his business empire, at least temporarily. As the New York Times reported on June 27, 1990, Donald J. Trump averted a personal financial crisis yesterday by reaching a hard-fought agreement with bank creditors, but the developer, who once seemed invincible, paid a steep price. He has been forced to give up control over his multi-billion-dollar empire, at least temporarily, to the bankers who came to his rescue. The Trump Taj Mahal filed for bankruptcy on October 5, 1991, with Trump ultimately ceding 50% ownership to bondholders in exchange for reduced interest rates and extended payment terms. The Plaza and Castle casinos followed suit in 1992, along with several of Trump's other assets, including the Plaza Hotel in Manhattan and the Trump Shuttle airline. These bankruptcies were structured under Chapter 11, which allowed the businesses to continue operating while debt was restructured, but they represented a humbling acknowledgement that Trump's expansion had been unsustainable. The casino bankruptcies revealed several important aspects of Trump's business philosophy that would persist throughout his career. First, he demonstrated a willingness to use bankruptcy laws strategically, later telling Newsweek in 2011, "I do play with the bankruptcy laws. They're very good for me." Second, he showed remarkable skill at shifting personal liability to creditors and investors while maintaining control over operations and branding. Third, he displayed an ability to weather public financial humiliation while maintaining the confident public persona that was central to his brand. The Atlantic City experience also highlighted Trump's pattern of overpromising and underdelivering on financial projections. Despite his claims of business genius, investigations revealed that most of the losses sustained by Trump's casino businesses resulted from poor management decisions rather than market conditions or tax strategies. The casinos were burdened with debt service that consumed most of their revenue, leaving insufficient capital for the maintenance and improvements necessary to compete effectively in an increasingly crowded market. By the mid-1990s, Trump had largely extricated himself from day-to-day casino operations, though he maintained licensing agreements that allowed his name to remain on the properties. The restructured companies continued to struggle with debt and market pressures, with Trump Entertainment Resorts filing for bankruptcy again in 2004 and 2009. The Trump Taj Mahal eventually closed in 2016 and was later reopened under different ownership as the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino Atlantic City. The Atlantic City experience taught Trump valuable lessons about risk management and the importance of maintaining liquidity, lessons he would apply to his subsequent business ventures. However, it also established his reputation as someone who was willing to take enormous risks with other people's money while using legal mechanisms to protect his personal assets when those risks failed to pay off. The 1990s represented the most challenging period of Donald Trump's business career, a decade when his over-leveraged empire nearly collapsed and forced him to confront the limitations of his expansive ambitions. The financial difficulties that began with his casino bankruptcies in the early 1990s created a cascade of problems that affected virtually every aspect of his business operations and personal wealth. The scope of Trump's financial distress in the early 1990s was staggering. According to the New York Times investigation of his tax records, Trump claimed $916 million in net operating losses on his 1995 tax return, losses so substantial that they potentially allowed him to avoid paying federal income taxes for nearly 2 decades. These losses stemmed primarily from his failed casino ventures, but also included write-offs from other troubled investments including the Trump Shuttle airline, the Plaza Hotel, and various real estate developments that had been financed with excessive debt. The Plaza Hotel, which Trump had purchased in 1988 for more than $400 million, became a symbol of his financial overreach during this period. The historic Manhattan Hotel, while prestigious, generated insufficient revenue to service the debt Trump had incurred to acquire it. Like his casinos, the Plaza was forced into bankruptcy in 1992, and Trump was required to surrender management control to his creditors. The loss of the Plaza was particularly humbling for Trump because the hotel had been a highly visible symbol of his success and sophistication. The financial pressures of the early 1990s forced Trump to liquidate many of his most prized assets. He sold his Trump Princess yacht, a 282-foot vessel that had been another symbol of his wealth and success. He also disposed of his Trump Shuttle airline, which had never achieved profitability and represented another example of his tendency to enter businesses where he lacked relevant expertise. These asset sales provided temporary cash flow but also represented a significant contraction of the Trump business empire. Perhaps most painfully, Trump was forced to accept a dramatically reduced role in his own business operations. His creditors, led by major banks that had provided much of the financing for his 1980s expansion, effectively took control of his remaining assets and imposed strict limitations on his business activities. Trump was placed on what amounted to a personal allowance, with his spending monitored by bank representatives who had to approve major expenditures. This loss of autonomy was devastating for someone who had built his identity around the image of being a successful independent businessman. The tax implications of Trump's massive losses revealed both the severity of his financial problems and his sophisticated use of legal mechanisms to minimize his tax obligations. The $916 million loss carryforward meant that Trump could potentially offset any future income against these losses, effectively eliminating his federal income tax liability for years or even decades. While this aggressive tax planning was legal, it highlighted the disparity between Trump's public image as a successful businessman and the reality of his financial situation. During this period of financial distress, Trump demonstrated remarkable resilience and adaptability. Rather than retreating from public view, he maintained his high-profile lifestyle and continued to cultivate relationships with media figures who could help maintain his public image. He understood that his personal brand was his most valuable asset, and he invested considerable effort in preserving the perception of success even as his business empire contracted. The mid-1990s marked the beginning of Trump's transformation from traditional real estate developer to brand licensor and media personality. Having learned painful lessons about the risks of owning and operating complex businesses with high capital requirements, Trump began focusing on deals where he could monetize his name and reputation while minimizing his financial exposure. This shift represented a fundamental change in his business model, from asset ownership to brand management. Trump's licensing strategy involved partnering with other developers who would finance, construct, and operate buildings while paying Trump for the use of his name and, in some cases, his involvement in marketing and design. This approach allowed him to generate revenue without the substantial upfront investments that had caused his earlier problems. The model proved particularly successful in international markets, where the Trump name carried prestige among wealthy buyers seeking luxury properties. The success of Trump's licensing strategy was evident in the recovery of his financial position by the late 1990s. While he never regained the asset base he had controlled during the 1980s, his licensing fees and management contracts provided steady income that allowed him to rebuild his wealth gradually. More importantly, the licensing model positioned him for his later expansion into entertainment and media, where his personal brand would become even more valuable. The 1990s financial crisis also reinforced several key aspects of Trump's business philosophy that would characterize his later career. He developed an even greater appreciation for the strategic use of debt and bankruptcy laws to protect his personal interests. He learned to structure deals in ways that maximized his upside potential while limiting his downside risk. The launch of The Apprentice on NBC in 2004 marked a revolutionary moment in Donald Trump's career, transforming him from a New York real estate figure known primarily for his financial troubles into a national television star and cultural icon. The show's success not only rehabilitated Trump's public image but also provided him with the financial resources and national recognition that would later enable his political career. The concept for The Apprentice was developed by British television producer Mark Burnett, who had previously achieved success bringing Survivor to American television. Burnett envisioned a business-themed reality show that would combine the competitive elements of Survivor with the corporate setting of boardroom decision-making. Trump was not the first choice to host the show. Burnett had initially considered other business figures, but Trump's combination of wealth, controversy, and media savvy made him an ideal candidate for the role. The show's format was elegantly simple yet dramatically compelling. Each season featured 14 to 18 business-minded contestants who were divided into two competing corporations or teams. These teams were assigned business-related tasks such as sales challenges, charity fundraising events, or advertising campaigns. The losing team would face Trump in a boardroom confrontation where he would eliminate one contestant with his signature phrase, "You're fired." The Apprentice was an immediate success, becoming what NBC called the breakout rookie hit of the 2003 to 2004 American television season. During its first season, the show drew 20.7 million viewers over 8 episodes, making it one of the most watched programs on television and filling a crucial void in NBC's lineup as long-running hits like Friends and Frasier were ending their runs. The show's success was particularly valuable to NBC because it performed well in the advertiser-coveted 18 to 49 age demographic. Trump's television persona was carefully crafted to project the image of a successful, decisive business leader who demanded excellence from his subordinates. The show's opening sequence featured Trump surveying Manhattan from his helicopter, reinforcing the narrative that he was a wealthy, powerful figure who had overcome earlier challenges to reach the pinnacle of success. As Trump acknowledged in the opening, he had faced some bad times about 13 years earlier, but I fought back and I won, big league. The financial benefits of The Apprentice for Trump were enormous. He initially earned $50,000 per episode, but as the show's popularity grew, his compensation increased dramatically to eventually reach $3 million per episode, making him one of the highest-paid television personalities in America. According to tax records later obtained by the New York Times, Trump earned approximately $427.4 million from The Apprentice and related licensing deals during the show's run. This television income represented Trump's most reliable and substantial source of revenue during a period when many of his other business ventures were struggling. The show's success extended far beyond Trump's personal financial gain. The Apprentice fundamentally altered Trump's public image, transforming him from a businessman known for bankruptcies and financial difficulties into America's boss, a successful executive who could teach others about business success. The show presented Trump as tough but fair, demanding but supportive, creating a carefully constructed television persona that bore little resemblance to the reality of his actual business record. The cultural impact of The Apprentice was particularly significant in parts of America where Trump had previously been unknown. The show was especially popular in Midwest and rural regions that would later become crucial to Trump's political base. For these audiences, The Apprentice provided their primary introduction to Trump, presenting him as a successful businessman and strong leader rather than the New York tabloid figure he had been previously. The show also launched The Celebrity Apprentice, a spin-off format that began in 2008 and featured celebrities competing to raise money for charitable causes. This version of the show further enhanced Trump's profile and allowed him to interact with a broader range of public figures, from actors and musicians to athletes and politicians. The celebrity format also generated additional media coverage and social media attention that kept Trump in the public eye even between regular seasons. Trump's behavior on The Apprentice revealed several characteristics that would later become central to his political persona. He demonstrated a willingness to use racial division for entertainment purposes, with several contestants later reporting that Trump made racially charged comments both on and off camera. In 2005, Trump reportedly proposed creating a segregated season with all black contestants competing against all white contestants, arguing that it would reflect the vicious world in which people lived. While this idea was never implemented, it revealed Trump's casual attitude toward racial exploitation. The success of The Apprentice also provided Trump with a platform to develop and refine the communication style that would later prove so effective in politics. He learned to use simple, memorable phrases, "You're fired," that would resonate with audiences. He perfected the art of creating drama and controversy that would generate media coverage and social media discussion. And he discovered the power of positioning himself as an outsider who could challenge established norms and institutions. The show ran in various formats for 15 seasons from 2004 to 2017, ending only when Trump launched his presidential campaign and NBC severed its relationship with him due to controversial comments he made about Mexican immigrants. By that time, The Apprentice had provided Trump with the national recognition, financial resources, and media expertise that would prove crucial to his political success. The transformation of Donald Trump from struggling businessman to television star represents one of the most successful personal rebranding campaigns in American media history. Donald Trump's personal life has been as much a subject of public fascination as his business career, marked by 3 high-profile marriages, 5 children, 10 grandchildren, and numerous controversies that have often overshadowed his professional achievements. His relationships have been extensively documented by the media, creating a public narrative that intertwines personal drama with business success and political ambition. Trump's first marriage was to Ivana Marie Zelnkov, a Czech-American model and businesswoman whom he met in 1976 at a New York restaurant. Ivana, who had immigrated to Canada from Czechoslovakia and was working as a model and ski instructor in Montreal, was initially dating someone else when Trump pursued her with characteristic determination. He sent her 100 roses, took her to lavish dinners, and even flew to Canada to surprise her during a runway show. Their courtship culminated in a romantic New Year's Eve proposal in Aspen, followed by their wedding on April 9, 1977, at Marble Collegiate Church in New York City. The marriage produced 3 children who would later become central figures in Trump's business and political operations: Donald Trump Jr., born 1977, Ivanka Trump, born 1981, and Eric Trump, born 1984. Ivana was not merely Trump's wife but also an active participant in his business empire, serving as Vice President of Interior Design for several major projects including the Grand Hyatt Hotel and Trump Tower. She later became president of the Trump Castle Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City, demonstrating the significant role she played in the Trump Organization's operations. The marriage began to deteriorate in the late 1980s as Trump's business empire expanded and his relationship with actress and model Marla Maples developed into a serious affair. The dissolution of the Trump-Ivana marriage became a media sensation, particularly after a confrontation between Ivana and Maples in Aspen during the 1989 Christmas holidays. According to Maples, Ivana approached her outside a restaurant and said, "I'm Marla and I love your husband. Do you?" To which Ivana responded, "Get lost. I love my husband." This encounter, witnessed by numerous bystanders, effectively ended any possibility of the marriage surviving. The divorce proceedings, which lasted from 1990 to 1992, were extensively covered by the media and involved complex negotiations over Ivana's financial settlement. Ivana's lawyers argued that her involvement in building the Trump empire entitled her to more than the prenuptial agreement stipulated. Despite the acrimonious nature of the divorce, Donald and Ivana maintained a relatively civil relationship afterward, with Ivana describing them as companionable co-parents. She even attended Trump's presidential inauguration in 2017, and Trump regularly sought her advice throughout his presidency. Ivana Trump died on July 14, 2022, at age 73, with Trump issuing a heartfelt tribute calling her a wonderful, beautiful, and amazing woman who led a great and inspirational life. Her death marked the end of a relationship that, despite its tumultuous conclusion, had been foundational to both Trump's business success and his personal development. Trump's affair with Marla Maples, a model and actress from Georgia, began in 1985 while he was still married to Ivana. The relationship initially developed as a friendship during celebrity events, but gradually evolved into a romantic involvement that Maples later described as deeply conflicted due to Trump's marital status. Despite knowing Trump was married, Maples maintained that she never considered herself a mistress, saying she constantly prayed for guidance and urged Trump to stay and make it work with Ivana. The Trump-Maples relationship became increasingly public throughout the late 1980s, with Maples often spotted at the same events and locations as Trump. The affair reached a crescendo with the Aspen confrontation in 1989, after which Trump and Ivana separated in March 1990. The media coverage of the divorce and Trump's relationship with Maples was intense, with Maples spending 2 months hiding from photographers while tabloids sensationalized every aspect of their relationship. In 1993, Maples became pregnant with Trump's 4th child, Tiffany Trump, born October 13, 1993. Despite Trump's previous statements that he had no plans to remarry, the couple decided to wed shortly after Tiffany's birth. Their wedding on December 20, 1993, was an extravagant affair held in the Grand Ballroom of the Plaza Hotel, attended by 1,000 guests including celebrities like Howard Stern, Rosie O'Donnell, and O.J. Simpson. Maples wore a Carolina Herrera gown and a Harry Winston tiara worth $2 million. The marriage lasted only 3 years, with the couple separating in May 1997. Maples later explained to People magazine that they differed on their worldview and their approach to raising Tiffany. She also noted that she was never entirely comfortable with the life of luxury, feeling that she was playing a role because it was what the job called for. The divorce proceedings extended over 2 years, with Maples challenging the prenuptial agreement she had signed, though she ultimately accepted a settlement to avoid further emotional and physical turmoil. Despite their divorce, Trump and Maples have maintained a friendly relationship, particularly concerning their daughter Tiffany. In 2013, Maples appeared on Oprah Winfrey's Where Are They Now? And stated, "I still love Donald. I love Eric, Ivanka, and Donnie so much." The former couple even celebrated Easter together in 2023, demonstrating their commitment to co-parenting. Trump met Melania Naus, a Slovenian-born model, at a New York Fashion Week party in 1998. Their relationship developed gradually, with Melania initially maintaining her modeling career while Trump continued his business and media activities. The relationship survived several temporary separations and Trump's ongoing legal and financial challenges throughout the early 2000s. The couple married on January 22, 2005, in an elaborate ceremony at Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort in Palm Beach, Florida. The wedding was attended by numerous celebrities and political figures, including Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton, reflecting Trump's bipartisan social connections at the time. Melania wore a $200,000 Christian Dior gown, and the ceremony was followed by a reception for 350 guests. In 2006, Melania gave birth to Baron William Trump, Trump's fifth child and only child with Melania. Baron, born on March 20, 2006, has been kept largely out of the public eye compared to Trump's older children, though he has occasionally appeared at political events and family functions. Melania's role as Trump's wife evolved significantly as he transitioned from business to politics. She served as First Lady from 2017 to 2021 and again beginning in 2025, developing her own public profile and policy initiatives while maintaining a more private demeanor than her predecessors. Their marriage has been the subject of considerable media speculation, particularly regarding Melania's comfort with Trump's political career and the various controversies that have surrounded it. Trump's 5 children have all played significant roles in his business empire and political career, though to varying degrees. Donald Trump Jr., Ivanka Trump, and Eric Trump were heavily involved in the Trump Organization and served as key advisors during Trump's presidency. Tiffany Trump maintained a lower profile, focusing on her education and legal career, while Baron Trump remains largely private due to his age. The integration of family members into Trump's business and political operations reflects both his trust in family loyalty and his preference for maintaining control within a tight circle of trusted associates. However, this approach has also generated criticism regarding potential conflicts of interest and nepotism, particularly during Trump's presidency when several family members held official White House positions. Trump's role as a grandfather to 10 grandchildren has added another dimension to his public persona, with the grandchildren occasionally appearing at political events and family celebrations. The prominence of the Trump family in both business and politics represents one of the most significant examples of a modern American political dynasty, comparable to the Kennedy, Bush, and Clinton families. Donald Trump's transition from entertainment figure to political candidate represents one of the most dramatic career pivots in American political history, rooted in decades of political commentary, conspiracy theories, and growing dissatisfaction with traditional politicians. His path to the presidency began long before his formal announcement in 2015, emerging from years of public statements about politics, foreign policy, and what he perceived as America's declining status in the world. Trump's political consciousness can be traced back to the 1980s, when he began making public statements about American trade policy, military spending, and international relations. In 1987, he took out full-page advertisements in major newspapers criticizing U.S. foreign policy and suggesting that America was being taken advantage of by its allies. These early political statements revealed themes that would later become central to his presidential campaigns: skepticism about international alliances, criticism of trade agreements, and the belief that America needed stronger, more decisive leadership. Throughout the 1990s and 2000s, Trump continued to comment on political issues through media appearances and public statements. He was particularly critical of what he saw as incompetent leadership in Washington, often suggesting that successful business executives would be better suited to run the government than career politicians. His television appearances on programs like The Oprah Winfrey Show and various news programs provided him with a platform to develop and refine his political messaging. The birther conspiracy theory became Trump's most significant entry point into serious political discourse, beginning around 2011 when he began questioning President Barack Obama's birthplace and citizenship. Trump's persistent promotion of this false theory, claiming that Obama was not born in the United States and therefore was not eligible to be president, gained significant attention on social media and conservative media outlets. While the birther theory was repeatedly debunked and Obama eventually released his long-form birth certificate, Trump's advocacy for this conspiracy theory helped establish him as a significant figure within conservative political circles. Trump's consideration of presidential campaigns predated his successful 2016 run by several cycles. He explored potential candidacies in 1988, 2000, 2004, and 2012, each time generating media coverage before ultimately deciding not to run. These earlier flirtations with presidential politics allowed him to test messages, build name recognition, and develop relationships with political operatives and donors. They also revealed his understanding that presidential campaigns could serve as powerful platforms for promoting his personal brand, regardless of electoral outcomes. The decision to launch his 2016 presidential campaign was influenced by several factors. First, Trump believed that the field of Republican candidates was weak and that there was an opportunity for an outsider to succeed. Second, he was convinced that his celebrity status and media savvy would provide him with advantages that traditional politicians lacked. Third, he believed that economic anxiety and cultural changes had created an audience for his populist, nationalist message. The announcement of Trump's candidacy on June 16, 2015, was carefully choreographed to maximize media attention and establish key themes for his campaign.